When rich folks are above the law, how does justice apply? When the one with deeper pockets can keep judgment far at bay. Why should I pledge justice for all if we don't mean what we say? Liberty and justice for all. This is America's call. We must stand by our values, or it's certain we will fall. Hasn't always been our history, but it is our pledged ideal. Only if we stand together can we make that future liberty for all would mean the deepest choices are your own. Who you love, what you believe, your body, yours alone. Those decisions about your own life are your liberty applied. When the government restricts these things, then your liberty's denied. Liberty and justice for all. This is America's call. We must stand by our values, or it's certain we will fall. It hasn't always been our history, but it is our pledged ideal. Only if we stand together can we make that future history's a slow progress to grant equal rights to all. Shall it be in our lifetimes that we see that progress fall? All persons on our sovereign land must have justice and liberty. To say otherwise is to deny the work of centuries. Liberty and justice for all. This is America's call. We must stand by our values, or it's certain we will fall. Hasn't always been our history, but it is our pledged ideal. If only if we stand together can we make that future real. To set neighbor against neighbor means defeat for our dear land. As a president once told us, a house divided cannot stand. Let us now be indivisible. Let freedom truly be for all. Only then will we achieve what we pledge in every home. Liberty and justice for all. This is America's call. We must stand by our values, or it's certain we will fall. It hasn't always been our history, but it is our pledged ideal. Only if we stand together can we make that future real. Tell me, will we stand together to make that future real?
As stated, I'm a veteran, but I don't speak for all veterans. I'm a citizen, but I don't speak for all citizens. I stand here and speak today because I feel it is my duty to speak uncomfortable truths, and it's my right to do so, enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. This past June, I spoke at an 81st anniversary D-Day commemoration event in downtown Indy, and I'm going to repeat some words that are still relevant today. Today, we find our nation at a crossroads. Just as in World War II, This time, though, it is very different. During World War II, an entire generation of citizens showed us the ultimate example of service before self. Today, we find an opposite tug at the soul of America. Instead of service before self, we find our leaders from the president on down instituting policies and the messaging of self before service. Instead of leaders working for the benefit of others, we have leaders using their power and authority to gain self-enrichment and accumulate more power. Instead of America investing in the world's greater good, we are enacting isolationist policies and turning our backs on countries we have long called allies. From 1941 to 1945, we joined with our allies in fighting against authoritarian regimes. 80 years later, we are becoming what we once fought to overthrow. Our Constitution, a framework our forefathers signed into being in 1787 as the best means that they could devise to avoid the tyranny early Americans fought to throw off, is in peril. As an example, our First Amendment rights of free speech are under fire for individual citizens and business organizations, as well as our universities and the free press. The Fourth Amendment rights for unlawful search and seizure are ignored. Our Fifth Amendment rights are being infringed against undocumented persons and U.S. citizens who have been caught up in Gestapo-like sweeps and subjected to third country deportations. Birthright citizenship, codified in the 14th Amendment, is under attack. And voting rights for minorities and women in the 15th and the 19th Amendments are also under attack. This is not a conclusive list. I believe it will not stop growing unless we all continue to push back. I say this to remind all of us that our previous generations fought for this country's values, wishing to create a better future for their posterity. They served because they believed democracy, not fascism or authoritarianism, was the best form of government for a country's citizens. From a veteran's perspective, I believe our military still adheres to these principles, bound to the Constitution by sworn oath. But what about our elected officials? As an 18-year-old at the Air Force Academy, I took my first oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I both repeated and administered that oath many times over 30 years of service. I find myself repeating that oath almost daily now as a citizen. I didn't realize at the time that I took that first oath that I connected into a long line of the greatest generation and then going all the way back to our founding fathers. The oath is codified in our U.S. Constitution, specifically Article 6, Clause 3. The senators and representatives and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. Separately, George Washington saw to it that those that served in the military also swore an oath in a similar fashion, not to a leader, but to the Constitution. Jumping forward to our present era, General Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and one of the very first individuals this administration tried to erase, said this about the military's oath at his retirement: "We don't take an oath to a king or a queen or to a tyrant or to a dictator. We don't take an oath to a wannabe dictator. We don't take an oath to an individual. We take an oath to the Constitution, and we take an oath to the idea that is America, and we are willing to die to protect it." The Constitution and the subsequent Bill of Rights and other amendments exist to guide us in what it means to form a more perfect union. I mention this because beyond the military and public servants that take this oath, the Constitution provides each of us as citizens moral clarity and moral authority. Moral clarity about how our government is supposed to work and how we are to treat people in this country. The First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. As citizens, you are showing moral authority by exercising your First Amendment rights right here and right now. Whether you have sworn to defend the Constitution with your life or support the Constitution as a citizen, your dedication to the principles of the Constitution must go beyond exercising your right and responsibility to vote. To protect the Constitution, you must first read the Constitution and seek to understand it in the context of today. To protect the Constitution, you must engage in civic and civil discourse, especially when you believe that policy or petty politics must engage, harms the greater good. And finally, to protect the Constitution, you must exercise your First Amendment right to speak up, especially when it is hardest to do so. Our founding fathers got it mostly right, but they, like all leaders, were far from perfect. The first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, were an immediate example of needing to add context and clarity to the Constitution. They were smart enough to realize this, but that they also realized further changes would be required was brilliant foresight. One just needs to read the following amendments. The 13th, abolition of slavery. The 14th, equal protection. The 15th, right of citizens to vote. The 19th, women's suffrage. To realize how much our nation would need to change in the future. We are not there yet. We need to continue to change for the greater good and stay tethered to our rights and principles as citizens. Thomas Jefferson once said, in questions of power, let no more be said of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. Frederick Douglass later expanded on this thought. The problem is whether the American people have loyalty enough, honor enough, and patriotism enough to live up to their own Constitution. Today's event offers us the means to learn more about our Constitution and our democracy, and how we can do as Douglass exhorted us. Choose honor, choose patriotism, choose loyalty to our Constitution and what it stands for. We have a lot of information for you here today, and many organizations, worthy organizations, with whom you can consider becoming part of, each connected in its own way to an aspect of our Constitution. Use all that information as context to view where we're currently headed, and then use it as a compass to steer us back on track. I'd like to finish by passing on 3 challenges I recently heard from the Indianapolis Black Church Coalition. These resonated with me, and I hope they do for you as well. First, unite together beyond your lane. Explore the organizations that we have here today, and choose at least one to support and be involved with. Second, stay spiritually grounded, no matter your belief, and become civilly engaged. The options are many. It's enough to choose one. Third, organize like your future depends on it, because it does. This festival today is the result of a handful of Hamilton County citizens organizing with an unwavering focus of hosting this festival. We aren't exceptional people. We are just citizens who believe we have to step into the arena to protect our Constitution. Help us and do the same. Thank you.
You're the voice of the generation, so leave them waiting. Your time is now. Your time is now. So spit it out. Won't you say it with your whole chest? Won't you say it with confidence? 'Cause you know where this road ends. You know who you are, the places you've been. Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson was a staunch supporter of freedom of the press, and you've heard him quoted a couple of times today. In the midst of drafting that initial version of the Constitution, which did not include the Bill of Rights, he said, "Our liberty depends on freedom of the press." And for sure this week, we are seeing major attacks on freedom of speech, freedom of the press. More famously, he said, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." That's how important he felt the press was to democracy. Our Constitution's First Amendment explicitly protects freedom of the press. It's a freedom that's being sorely challenged right now. Speaking with us today on this topic is Colleen Steffen. Colleen is a seasoned journalist, and she has experience working for multiple newspapers. Currently, she is the executive editor of the StateHouseFiles.com, which is an amazing online publication that deals not with only Indiana news in general, but during our legislative session, that team is on site at the State House every day to cover what's happening. It's offering real-life journalism training to Franklin College students who run it.
So my speech is titled Freedom of the Press Matters, and I'm assuming you believe that already or you wouldn't be here. The Founding Fathers believed it. The Constitution says the country believes it as a core principle. But I'd like to share the hardest lesson that my students learn when they come to the Indiana State House and try to put that phrase into action. Freedom of the press matters, but what happens when people act as if it does not matter? I teach journalism at Franklin College, as Sharon said, and I'm executive editor of the State House File, which is Franklin's full-time, year-round student newsroom in the press corps of the Indiana State House. My program's 20 years old. There's only 30 such programs in the entire nation. And every semester, Franklin's journalism majors come to our little office in the basement of the State House to work alongside the professionals. My students wear a press badge. They sit in the press box of the Senate or the House chambers. They go to committee meetings. They write stories. They make multimedia that gets republished all around the state. And they get to watch government up close, probably for the first time. Civics education being what it is, my students arrive with only a vague notion sometimes of how a bill becomes a law. And some of them have never driven their car in downtown Indianapolis before, much less do they understand how a conference committee works. My students have to learn all the elements of this very complicated system at the same time as they're learning how to talk to important strangers, how to write coherently, and maybe wear a blazer every day for the first time. But that's not the hard part. The hard part every time, for every reporter I have, is getting our elected officials to give them the time of day. Now, there are a lot of reasons that a lawmaker might not talk to my reporters. My reporters look 12. They recently were 12. Lawmakers have a ton of people calling them all the time. They're busy people. Ignoring emails, ignoring messages is what busy people do. Maybe they've had a negative experience with the press. If I'm going to be more cynical, I'm going to say maybe they have found it convenient to dislike the press. So while many of our lawmakers can be counted on to be responsive to the press corps, many prefer to issue press releases and post on social media. and communicate through channels that they can completely control. So if freedom of the press matters, is that okay? I'm going to say no. We have to have lawmakers' comments for the stories we write because it would be biased and it would be irresponsible for us to publish information with half that information missing. So the most important skill that I end up teaching my lovely Midwest, milk-fed, polite students is how to talk to strangers, how to take up space, and how not to take no for an answer. Basically do a lot of things their mothers raised them not to do, like send an email and then send another email and then send 2 emails a day for a week. Call and then call again and then call again. Scrounge around for the person's personal cell phone and then use it. Call people they might know and get them to call for you. Go to the person's office and sit in a chair until they can't ignore you anymore. Go find out what meetings they have today, stand outside those rooms, and wait for them to come out. I don't know if you've met any young people recently, but they don't even like to answer their cell phones, much less do they think this sounds not terrifying or horrifying. So this turns out to be their big, important lesson. Freedom of the press matters, but a lot of lawmakers, policymakers, government officials, business people, nonprofit administrators, a lot of people in charge of a lot of things that are very important in our communities act as if freedom of the press does not matter. They don't choose to participate. They don't choose to make time. They don't choose to be scrutinized or to explain their motives or to answer hard questions. And I won't even touch on the ones who call us fake news. Here's how my students have to learn how to respond. Not to think about the guy in charge ignoring them, not to think about how they're irritating people or embarrassing themselves, to think about the ordinary people out there who need this information and don't have the ability to get it. Because do you have time to do all this work yourself? I have a reporter right now working on a story about the Afghan evacuees living in Indiana and who can't get clear answers about their immigration statuses. She interviewed one man who has 3 children, 3 jobs, and gets 4 hours of sleep a night. Does he have time to go stand outside a lawmaker's office and wait for that person to emerge and answer questions about how the rules have changed for him? No, he doesn't. Would you, as an ordinary citizen, even know how to navigate the State House? Do you know where to park, what door to go in, how to find your senator or representative's office? Would you be able to get past the receptionist if you did? That building is public, but it's huge and confusing and intimidating, and most of the business scheduled in that place is from 9 to 5 on weekdays when people are at work. As a result, we see relatively few members of the public there. You can try calling yourself, of course, but have you ever rung up your lawmaker to share an opinion? You probably talked to an intern or left a message on a machine and didn't hear anything back. And it's not just government officials. For example, my electric bill has doubled in the last year. But I haven't read the fine print on the bill. I haven't called the 800 number. I didn't attend the meeting last week with the regulatory agency that's deciding if AES can raise our rates again. It was scheduled an hour away from my house and on a weekday afternoon, and I'm busy teaching Gen Z how to talk on the phone. I was not there. But the Indy Mirror was there, Indy Star was there, Capitol Chronicle was there. A bunch of reporters were there for me, so I didn't have to be, but I could still get the information and maybe even understand it a little. Many shy State House file reporters have found the courage to be persistent and annoying and get answers from people in charge who would rather not give them because they realize that it matters to ordinary people. At first, my students are very intimidated and daunted, but they finally make the connection that when people in positions of power ignore us, the press, they're ignoring you, the people. When they vilify the press, when they find excuses not to engage with it, not to be challenged by it, they're hiding from the people they're supposed to work for. Journalism is called the fourth estate. We're the final balance in this delicate system of judiciary and legislative and executive. And I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the balance is off. It's getting worse. But instead of discouraging my students, this experience lights a fire in them for this work. And that alone gives me so much hope for the future. I'll turn it back to you and ask, do you act like freedom of the press matters? If you want to help, thank you. If you want to help, please be careful about the media you consume and share. Look for outlets that deeply research their subjects, that talk to many people on many sides, and that use substantive evidence. And please pay for the journalism that you use if you're able. There are many, many responsible local journalists at work. Indianapolis has seen a lot of growth in the last 5 years since I started my job in the State House. We've seen Mirror Indy, the Capital Chronicle, States News, Chalkbeat, Axios come in. Some are nonprofits like we are. Some are for-profit. Some of them are part of Free Press Indiana, which is an organization that's fighting news deserts all around the state. Reading, subscribing, financially contributing to these outlets means that they can keep working, keep bothering all of those lawmakers and other folks in charge. And I would love it if you would read the State House file. Last year, I had 28 students, and they produced over 2,100 pieces of content that got published all over the state. They won professional and collegiate, regional and national awards. We beat out places like Harvard and Northwestern, which for Franklin College, with less than 900 students, that's quite heady company. Our political life is getting darker and scarier, but these young people I work with, they are working so hard, and they're doing it for you, the public, with a sense of mission that I hope you can find encouraging. That's it for me. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
That was even better than I could have hoped for. She is speaking truth. We have to support the freedom of the press. We cannot let it die, which is what is really going on right now. They're trying very hard to squelch the independent news and the independent press. She also spoke truth when she said we need to be paying for it. That's what kills journalism, is when nobody is willing to fund journalism. So I encourage you to check out the statehousefiles.com. It is truly a tremendous site. There are a myriad of other nonprofit news organizations out there that you can find good quality news for.
Media tells you what to think and what to feel in rotation. You feel connected by the warm glow of your phone. So easy to hide away, miss what your soul's been saying. I know that we will find a way the second time around. Won't you come there with me, where love guides all you see? No use to pack your doubts, and I know that we will find a way the second time around. So tired of the good old days, they were not what you remember. Broke the places lead many on their own. It's time now for a better way, be the change this world's been praying. I know that we will find a way the second time around. Lord, I pray that we will find a way the second time around.
It took America until 1865 to ratify an amendment that abolished slavery in this country. 78 years and multiple generations after the ratification of our nation's Constitution. This amendment is one of the shortest amendments It's got 43 words in just 2 sentences. Its brevity is an injustice to the approximately 700,000 Confederate and Union soldiers who lost their lives in our nation's tragic and bloody Civil War. Our next speaker, Karen Byrd, isn't here to talk to us about slavery per se, but she is here to remind us that long ago we faced deeply polarized times. The failure of both we, the people, and our elected politicians at that time to address and resolve the sources of division ended up costing this nation a whole lot of lives and tremendous suffering. We have both opportunity and obligation to learn from our history and to use our Constitution as the guideposts that unify us. Karen is a writer, a speaker, an activist, and an everyday citizen like me and like you. Join me in welcoming Karen to the stage as she shares her perspective on our history and where we're going.
Hey everybody, I'm Karen Byrd. I'm been to way too many of these things, I feel like, but it's necessary in this day and age, so let's get started. The folly of allowing ourselves to delay what we know cannot finally be escaped is one of the general weaknesses which, in spite of the moralists and the remonstrances of reason, prevails to a greater or lesser degree in every mind, and even they who most steadily withstand it find it to be, if not the most violent, then the most pertinacious of their passions. Always renewing its attacks, and though often vanquished, never destroyed. Now that's a quote from Samuel Johnson. He was a public intellectual and moralist of his day. This is from 1751, so the founders would have read him. And there he was speaking narrowly of procrastination in terms of work. So in terms of just kind of delaying your work until the last minute and doing it then, and saying, it was very common among people and it was a flaw that people needed to struggle against. But delay is not the only aspect of procrastination, or even the most dangerous one. There's also an element of denying the consequences of our actions, denying the consequences of our decision, or of our indecision. Procrastination not by inaction, but by wrong action, by substitute action. Kicking the can down the road, just-in-time reasoning. Move fast and break things reasoning. This is the kind of thing that's been a part of our nation's story for a long time. It's an issue that we've had to contend with since the very beginning. And even though those phrases that I just used are fairly contemporary, they're issues that the founders had to contend with as well. And in the later years, the years we're living in now, we've kind of raised this style of procrastination to a high art. Basically, those kind of phrases have the ring of scripture here in America now. It can be said that every society has character. So back in the old days, you had some where everybody was a warrior. There was always a fight, always interesting stuff going on, always something to do. But even if you wanted to be, say, just a bureaucrat, an advisor to a king, or treasury secretary, you would have to get involved in fighting or starting wars in order to gain the dignity to be awarded to the position in that society. Other societies were very doctrinaire. So they had a scripture or a law or a set of rules for everything. Any question you had, the answer was in there. All good stuff. But sometimes they would run into the issue of trying to do an action and running into tons of bureaucracy that would prevent them from acting in a timely fashion. Maybe you were an outlying colony of a great empire, and you're just chilling, you're raising chickens, raising sheep for the taxes you have to pay. Very chill, lots of great barn parties, until one day some guy crosses the Alps, and that's it for you. I say all this to say that every society has its strengths and its weaknesses, and it has to construct structures culturally to deal with those weaknesses, or else it's not going to last. America, we're very industrious, a lot of get up and go. Even the wealthiest and most powerful of us spend a lot of their time working and developing and marketing and selling. We market everything, we sell everything, even people, in a different way than we used to, true, but still. Even the military has corporate sponsors. Sometimes they are the corporate sponsor. So for better or for worse, this is who we are as a nation, if not necessarily as individuals. As a country, 100%. And this attitude, this orientation toward the world has brought us a lot of prosperity, a level of prosperity that I think was kind of unimaginable before we attained it. But it's also shifted our values, our perspective, into one that focuses on greed, on short-sightedness, on instant gratification. And your virtues will consume you if they're not properly balanced. The people who came before us, they built some structures that could temper those impulses in us. But those structures have withered under the very capital that we generated from them previously. So those structures have to be maintained. They have to be updated as the years go on. And that maintenance is usually precipitated by a crisis. So we're right on time. We're right on time here for updating those. Just like in the old days, we found ourselves relying on the seeds of our own destruction, just like the founders, because of the other fruit that those seeds can bear. So that's money, that's power, that's industrial strength, that's international influence. And it's not an issue of lack of foresight or lack of imagination. The founders knew that slavery would be an issue from the very beginning, so much so that they wanted to put a condemnation of it in the Constitution, to actually put the words in the document. But as they sat around, counting the huge stacks of money that they received as a part of this institution, they decided, what, let's leave it. Let's let it cook. Disrupting it now could cause us to fall apart as a country after we just won this war that we weren't expected to win. So let's just leave it for now, right? The country's free enough. There's enough freedom to get us where we want to go. Minimum viable freedom. So they let the grass grow under their feet on the issue, even though they knew one day it would have to be cut. But they left that kind of yard work to their descendants. And because they did not yet exist, they could not complain. And when it finally came around to their descendants having to contend with all the compromises that had been made, the ones written down and the ones that could not be put into words, they found themselves having to go to war again. Long, bloody war, just insane, crazy body counts, one of the bloodiest conflicts definitely in the history of the country. And at the end of that, they tried to kind of put things back together. So they said, hey, we're going to do it right. We're going to put everything the way it should be. We're going to live out this Constitution the way that we were supposed to. And for a while that happened. But the call of what's, greedy and easy to get and desirable on a superficial level is very difficult to ignore. So it came back again. And then over and over, we've had to endure in our history this humiliation of open hypocrisy, of this kind of naked exploitation that, exploits everything that's exploitable and then moves on to the things that weren't supposed to be exploitable, but became that way because of the power of capital. I say all that to say that as tempting as it might be to kind of wallow in our shameful feelings of how far we are from where we should be and how far we've fallen and the ignorance that has delayed action until the point that we're at now, a better choice is to decide where we want to go and how we're going to get there. Because the truth is that no matter how a society is organized, no matter what rules, what laws, what norms, whatever you want to call it, govern the activity of the people, if the people are not active citizens, if they do not take their citizenship seriously enough, the wrong people end up in power. And since there's no such thing as a society where everybody does what they're supposed to do all the time, where everybody is as responsible as they should be, everybody gets here sometime if they last long enough. So instead of getting too deep in our feelings about what's happened. We need to start thinking of this as something that we just have to do every so often, this refreshing of our institutions that prevent this kind of thing from happening. Because the work of justice, the work of fairness, the work of creating opportunity, the work of offsetting our weaknesses, the work of democracy is the work of life. So let's build those structures. Let's create something that lasts, some scaffolding that our descendants can look back on to guide them through a situation like the one we're in now. Because character flaws, especially national ones, are often vanquished, but they're never destroyed. So the smart money says our descendants will find themselves here again. Let's do it.
I like what Karen said. Democracy is the work of life. It isn't something that we get to step into and then step out of it. We have to persist.
We all have a light that we shine. We just have to see it within ourselves and then let it out and believe that we have gifts to give. And so I'm here to celebrate you with this song and your gift. Now let it shine. This is called Shine Your Light. It's a guessing game, 'cause anybody's guessing no two are the same. Like a face without a name in a dusty picture frame. A sepia tone gazing back at you with the eyes of someone you once knew in some other life. It's a passion play as we vie for our good fortune day to day. Prism color bands give way to black and white and shades of gray. We play our parts for better or for worse, all our lines delivered unrehearsed for the curtain call. Shine your light, shine it far and bright, a beacon in this fog of uncertainty. Don't lose sight, let your soul take flight, make the world a better place to be. It's a brass ring, therefore you're grasping. It's within your reach. The adventure starts the day that you are born, and the road you'll travel is narrow and worn from good intentions. So go your own way, but don't force it, for life will surely make you pay. That's what the sages say, so just do your best, come what may. Leave your mark where someone else might see, then softly slip into obscurity. Still you leave a trace. Now nothing can erase. So shine your light, shine it far and bright, beacon in this fog of uncertainty. Don't lose sight, let your soul take flight, make the world a better place to be. Yeah, make this world a better place to be. Go and shine your light. The world needs you.
So now we're going to shift once again, and we're going to go to some poetry. This time we're going to think about the role that poetry has played in advocating for social change, and it's a big one. It's a powerful source of expression. It touches our hearts as well as our minds. Maya Angelou, her poems inspired activists during the Civil Rights Movement. Later, in the 1960s, Allen Ginsberg's poem, Wichita Vortex Sutra, ignited America's youth, who are now America's baby boomers, into protest of the Vietnam War. And more recently, in 2017, Amanda Gorman became our nation's first national youth poet laureate at age 19. She used her poetry to encourage young people to use their voices to advocate for the change they wanted to see in our nation and in our world. We're very fortunate to have a local young poet joining us this afternoon. Sierra Rainey is a native of Chicago, but she came to Indiana to attend Notre Dame University, where she graduated with a degree in English. I was introduced to Sierra when I interviewed her for her first job post-college. She wowed me then with her precise and clear communication. She's continued to wow me through these past several years as I've been privileged to read several poems that she's published. Indiana is lucky enough to have kept Sierra here post-college. I want you to join me in welcoming Sierra to the Freedom Stage for the recitation of an original poem titled State of the Human. Sierra?
I was asked to write a poem about what it is like being a Black woman in this country right now. But this piece is not about Blackness. It is not about womanness. It is about the common thread that binds us, not even as American people, but as people, our humanity. This is State of the Human. We, the people of the United States, are still deciding who the people are. Compromise again by counting each fifth of a person's humanity, though now it is easier to find ways to reduce them. Subtract 1 for skin with an excess of color. Subtract 2 for the absence of a Y chromosome. You lose another if English did not flow from your tongue first. And the last can be lost for any reason. For loving and vivid arcs of color that bend around tradition, for being born a daughter who bears the pronouns of a son, for kneeling in prayer toward a foreign horizon, for bowing before no altar except the earth itself, for clinging to a tribal name in a land that demands forgetting, for speaking a language of hands when the world demands sound, for chasing daydreams and purpose instead of dollars and profits, for living life on a spectrum that does not define normality, for carving meaning into spaces that some call disordered, for carrying your home address in the soles of tattered shoes, for believing that your body is your body to do with as you choose, for seeing genocide where others see political strife, for hearing hate speech where others hear righteousness, for knowing no one deserves to lose their life for what they believe, for knowing what you believe should never degrade the value of another person's life. And what is a person if not the immigrant carrying a homeland between his ribs? What is a person if not the officer who breaks those ribs like glass? What is a person if not the child rehearsing survival instead of recess? What is a person if not the gunman who made that rehearsal necessary? What is a person if not me, if not you, if not them, if not a citizen, or some other label for this human birthright? But when the human is stripped away and the rights are ripped away, through what dialect will this government define our worth? Bloodlines like mine are already engraved with historical connotations meant to diminish, to degrade, to deface our power. But we have broken the bondage forced upon us before, and we will do it again if we have to. It is a shame that we have to. This country is not an accident of borders. It is the covenant of people who are exploited by the rule of one voice and banded against it to found a place worthy of being called the land of the free. Centuries later, this country trembles at the sight of its own reflection, not recognizing itself in the mask of an imposter. But this is not a syndrome. We have become the mask. This guilt is well earned. With every book burning, with every censorship, with every starving child, with every mass shooting, with every brutalized body, with every broken promise, with every seed of hate that has been sown in the soil of a land that calls itself free or great or the land of liberty, the guilt is the harvest. America, where is your liberty? Your justice, your tranquility? Has there ever been general welfare? How many more pieces of this country's identity will be stolen before it can no longer be recognized? Whose American dream is this? A union is not born whole. It is intentionally stitched by hands that decide to reach for each other. Not point fingers, not destroy, but reach. There is labor in this. There is love in this. There is humanity in this. And what is a country but humanity gathered into promise, carried forward by a common will to live, to prosper, to be free? America, where is your freedom? And what will you do to be worthy of it? Thank you.
This is called Good Seeds. It's a classic contradiction, what we want and what we need. The things we'll take for granted and the things for which we bleed. Some are built to go the distance, while others just for speed. But to taste the fruit of your labors, you gotta start with good seeds. one thing to know of army, another to have a plan. One thing to have opinions and quite another to take a stand. Some folks choose their battles, others draw lines in the sand. Well, you can scream about injustice, but you'd better be willing to lend a hand. Now sometimes I get so confused and I don't know where to turn, and when to build those bridges, when to just let them burn. There's a garden of Eden hidden here among the weeds, and I'm bound to reap the harvest if I start with good seeds. One thing to know heartache, another to feel pain. One thing to be the flower and another to be the rain. So don't think you're not good enough, that you don't deserve all that you've gained. For the universe is generous to those who don't complain. But some claim to see the future and never own their past. Some spend a lifetime searching for something that will last. But there's a garden of Eden, it's hidden here among the weeds, and I'm bound to reap the harvest if I start with good seeds. Yeah, there's a garden of Eden, it's hidden here among the weeds. We all can reap the harvest if we start with good seeds. So get started.